I love it. I love it. If Bleach continues to be as strong as the first part of the Soul Society arc, it's going to easily be in my top 3 favorite series. Everything that this gave me is everything. So I'm looking forward to talking about the first part of the Soul Society arc for Bleach with you all today. We're talking about chapters 71 through 116. I'm very surprised by what I have taken away from this part of the story so far. I find the Soul Society world that we're in so fascinating and also a wake-up call. When you think of the Soul Society, or when I initially thought about these captains and these people who are governing all these souls and where they go and yada, 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 but I didn't think about the fact that even in this realm, you still see that people are to their core who they are as we navigate through captains and who we can trust and who we cannot trust. And the people who are literally outside of the, what's it called? The Seirete, and how they're treated so poorly amongst people who are supposed to be, I don't know, better. I would think better than that, but they have people in the slums and children around murderers. And then even within the Seirete, you have people who are lower ranked, like Hanataro, who's this cute, sweet kid. And yes, he's not super strong, but he's so resourceful. And in general, just trying to help in the way he's kind of neglected and put down. And then you have somebody like an Ichigo who is, and the rest of his awesome team who are illegally entering, but they're helpful. They're trying. And even when they're trying to save Rukia and they have to fight all these people, they don't even want to kill. And maybe it's because I don't have a full understanding yet of what the Soul Society represents, but to be able to kill Rukia, to be able to have people on the outside of the elite to be treated that way, to treat each other that way, to murder amongst one another, has me so captivated into this world in a way that I wasn't expecting, especially given all the awesome storyline points that we got. And I have to wonder if you're going to have somebody, one of our characters, if we're going to have some people stay and try to fix some of this, because it looks like at the same time, these Soul Reapers, they've been here for a long time. Maybe they need some new blood, a new generation to come and change things. I don't know, but I just find it really cool, and I wasn't expecting to take all of that from the story. Now, when we get to the actual plot, I love the pacing of this story so much. I cannot reiterate that enough. As far as the actual events that happen, the fights, and all of Ichigo's fights were so good, and I can't wait to talk about that. But also the little moments we got with the other characters. We focused a lot on Ichigo, but there were some great moments for Orihime and Chad. I'm already so proud of these characters that I just met. It's safe to say I am having such a good time with this story, and I can't wait to continue. So we break in. It's the moment we've been waiting for. We get into the Soul Society, but one of the biggest moments in this section that stands out to me is Orihime. I ended the last video saying I wasn't really feeling her, but she starts off in such a strong manner, and I'm very proud of her. We have the thing closing in on them and trying to capture them so they can't enter. She takes on saving everybody. It may have been a little destructive, but she did it. And we also have Uryu, and Chad saves him. There's something about Chad that makes me so emotional in his silent, heroic nature that's just wonderful. And then we get inside, and this is where I see that Ichigo is going to have to mentally, and he does it naturally, but mentally shut down any kind of qualms about who he's about to face, because he knows that there is no getting out of it. Like, he's going to have to prep himself to fight a lot of strong people. So when he has to fight the guard trying to stop him from entering the Seirete, this guard gave me a very interesting perspective of how this Soul Society works. I felt very betrayed for the guard. He comes off very empathetic. He cries when he loses, and it shows me he was more than just this goofy big guard. He is somebody who cares about the rules. And when we meet Ichimaru, that's when you're like, oh, this place, well, a while ago when they were trying to kill Rukia, we've noticed they're a little different, these Soul Reapers. But when we see him shoot the guard and destroy his arm and stop him from allowing what is supposedly allowed, and that's letting them inside, Ichimaru just makes him seem so insignificant. And while that creates a great moment for for Ichigo, as he stands up for this guard, and we realize Ichigo is just such a true leader, we see that there's something with these captains and the way this these Soul Reapers operate. But Ichimaru also has one of those sly smiles where you're like, I can't tell if you're actually good or bad. And he lets them leave. He doesn't kill them. And later we see that he's going to get punished for that. But we also see that we're not supposed to trust him. So he is such a wild card and I kind of love it. But also, you had no business shooting that guard. But the good thing about him shooting the guard is that it allowed us to meet other people in this soul society. And this particular section of it have built a community, a family. There are others where it's horrifying, but they offer to help our group with food and assisting with Orihime healing the guard. And they do it because they're thankful. They're thankful that they helped. So watching them help with medicine and food and all of that, I don't know how this soul society works because these people are dead. So I don't know how our group is able to kind of live like normal. So I'm fascinated to see how this world where we're at functions. But anyway, all of this leads us to meeting one of the characters that I thought I was going to really be annoyed by, but now I'm kind of liking him, and that is Ganju. And we can't talk about Ganju without Ikkaku, who helps us get to I will never be able to say this right, the Seirei. I don't know if I'm going to like this or not if we are introduced in each arc to a group of characters who kind of help facilitate the story, but then they're gone because I get so invested. So I hope that they are still a part of it, but at the same time I know we have so many characters that that's not likely, but the way their background with the death of his brother is integrated into this is great. And also seeing his relationship with Ichigo grow. Now, what was a little confusing and a little off-putting is that when we first meet him, we know that he can't stand Soul Reapers, and Ichigo and him definitely battle. Initially when they first fight, it's funny because the quips and things they say to each other, it works so well with both of their personalities and also both of them trying to prove that they can take out the other. But that was also confusing because Ichigo was kind of getting beat up by this character. Not beat up, whoa, that was a lot. But they were fighting and he was getting some punches in against Ichigo. But then when it comes to the actual battles, I don't expect him to be as strong as Ichigo. I don't expect most of these people to be as strong as Ichigo, especially as he just continues to accelerate in how good he's getting. But it seemed like he went from being super strong to being kind of goofy and not that strong. And he even was the one who helped Ichigo get his little ball aura thing that they needed to use a machine that his sister made to get to Seirei. So to see him kind of falter in that way was weird. Anyway, it's not a big deal. But what I do like about all of this is the relationship with Ikkaku and Yoruichi, the cat who is not a cat. I like it because it makes me so invested on what Yoruichi or who Yoruichi is tied to in this world outside of it. But because of that, we get to Seirei, kind of. So we get a classic split up here. And at first I was like, no. I'm not the biggest fan of split up situations in a manga series because a lot of the time, especially when you have a character introduced like Ganju, because those characters are usually with the main character. Like we had Ganju with Ichigo, and then I don't get to focus on our main group, and that always bothers me, but I like what we got to see of the other characters. The moments we got were wonderful. And this leads to Ichigo having so many great fights. And the first one he had was with Ikkaku. I really enjoyed this character and I enjoyed what he did for Ichigo and for the character himself. I don't really know him, right? I don't think he was even an assistant, but we get to see, I like the taste of strength that we get here. Like, oh, this is just the beginning of a lot. And watching Ichigo grow, it could almost seem like it's like, of course Ichigo's gonna grow, but it's a very natural progression. He already has a lot of this energy, very powerful energy, and he wants to constantly get better and push himself. So it's innate in him, and then it's also his will. So when we see these two fight and the other one starting off so strong, but Ichigo's resilience pushes him and his belief in himself. And I love when he'll just stand there and say stuff like, oh, I'm gonna win. And my favorite part of Ichigo beating him was when he was done. I thought the guy was done for, and Ichigo kept him alive. And I guess one could say that he only kept him alive in order to get the information about where Rukia was, but I don't think that's what it was. I don't think he ever wanted to kill him. I don't think he wants to kill anyone. I think he also has this understanding that he doesn't understand everyone and that they're all on a certain mission and that they were in there illegally. I think he's very perceptive of that. Maybe not, but that's what I take from it. And Ikkaku telling him, letting him know where she's at. And in general, I love when two opposing people in a manga and anime are fighting, but they also have this respect for each other. I felt like he got that for him and even warns him about his captain, which we will face later. But I enjoyed that character, and I think we're going to see more of him, and hopefully it's on our side. That's what I think is going to happen, but we'll see. I have to take a quick moment to talk about the captains as a collective, because different moments between all of them are scattered throughout this section of the arc. And I have never seen a group of people who I have no idea where any of their heads are at, who is reliable as a character as we're talking to them and who is not. I'm assuming something has happened in recent events because there is something so off about all of them. And not that they feel like they're on edge, but like they probably should be, or maybe they're so aware of what each other is doing that they're not worried. You have people who look bad, like Ichimaru, and you can't trust him, and people are saying, look out for him. And then you have somebody like Aizen, who immediately I fell for Aizen. I just thought he seemed like such a great guy. And with Momo, I think his assistant, their interactions, he seems so good. And then he's murdered. First of all, the way that murder was shown, that was horrible to look at. But the way we're seeing him be very quiet and collective, I'm not going to let him play me. I'm not. I'll trust these characters, and then they'll do something where I'm like, I should have went with my gut and just waited to see what's going to happen. But for now, I am enjoying him, but there's too much mystery behind him. There's too much of like, why would somebody randomly kill you? Were you going to tell on the Soul Society, like, or the Soul Reapers, like you knew something because he gives Momo that letter and it reveals everything? Or are you behind all of this? Are you trying to look like the good guy? It's too perfect for it to be Ichimaru is evil and crazy and he has this little cunning smile and you can't trust him, and then Aizen is just this noble person. I just don't think it's like that. But do I think it's that either are doing the right or wrong thing? I also don't know that. And we have Rukia's brother who just like seems so cold-hearted with his sister, with Renji. But because they're like this, I find this to be such a strong way of utilizing these characters. And don't get me wrong, I know that all of these characters are very strong and that's why a lot of them are captains, but I would like to know where the moral side of things comes from with captains in this world. I am enjoying the captains and assistant captains, but they would give me so much anxiety. They're giving me anxiety dealing with them and not knowing where each one of them lie as far as their allegiance to what they're doing, the people they're around. It's crazy. Uryu is, I really hope I get his name right because I am adoring his character. Seeing the part where we get to witness how strong he's gotten when he does his fight and protects Orihime and also just kills it. All of that is great, but what I'm really liking about a lot of these characters in this story are the small moments, even the way he speaks to Orihime and comforts her and just talks to her. And as he's growing as a person and interacting with people, because he's definitely been this introverted, at times angry, but also just to himself individual, that I like seeing him grow as just a communicator and building friendships. And obviously I'm so proud of him and what he's done, but I'm really loving the inner work that he's doing on himself and what we got to see in this arc. Chad, our sweet, lovely Chad. The way Chad's story was intertwined in all of this was interesting because it really focused on his relationship with Ichigo. And I didn't know they were as close as this showed, and why he's so loyal to fighting for Ichigo and seeing the way Ichigo saved him. And despite the fact that he made that promise to his grandfather, I think, about not using his strength to harm the people who picked on him. And then Ichigo saying, okay, how about this? You do it to save me and I save you. And we're taking on the bad guys. And him showing that level of loyalty, but also how great of a person he is and how true he is to his word, to his family, to Ichigo. It was so nice, and he's such a good person and so strong, and he was just taking people out. And it was almost so poetic how the person he got to fight was Koraku, because I couldn't picture a better person and more deserving person for Chad to be able to fight. They both are very peaceful individuals as far as like I think how they interact day to day, and they don't want to fight. So to see them both though be extremely strong, and the disappointment both of them had in having to fight each other, and wow, that character is not only strong, but like the way he destroyed Chad's body was so hard to look at, but I just love their energies together, and Chad's gonna be okay. I know it. And also I loved how Ichigo, he can sense Chad's energy, but also just how distraught he was when he thought he wasn't sensing it. Because we got to see so much of Chad, and in general, how these characters view Ichigo and how much they admire Ichigo. But to see him in very, very, again, those small moments since, and when he's worried about them throughout the fights, and we saw it strong with Chad, but he does it throughout the story in general of, oh my, are they okay? Okay, good. Like, oh, I love them all so much, but Chad really shined here in ways I wasn't expecting, like a lot of this arc. And I'm looking forward to see where he goes in this story. Now, I have to give a shout out to Hanataro. This little kid is such a gem to this story. I think this author does such a brilliant job of incorporating characters like him and Khan. It is so necessary when you're dealing with something so dark and heavy. And even when you have a character like Ichigo, I've said it, he's my favorite kind of character. It's nice to have that more childish, not even childish, but like fluffy character mixing in with his personality, who is on that very extreme of that end. Khan's not really fluffy, but you know what I mean? The kind of like SpongeBob kind of character who just meshes so not even well, but extremely well with a character like Ichigo, and having him with Ganju as well. Wait, did I say it right? Ganju. He is the reason we're able to keep fighting. And despite the fact that we meet him because he's he's constantly in shenanigans and his own people weren't going to save him. I know it was funny, but that is heartbreaking. How can he be so disposable to them? How can they try to protect this area, but not the people in it? In the people helping, and the way he's utilized in this, in his heart and trying to help Rukia, and how Rukia changed his life and gave him somebody to talk to, and how now he wants to save her despite how it's going to get him in trouble. The bravery he shows, how he's healed Ichigo, and this little trio. I could read about the three of them forever. I couldn't imagine them being as successful without him. And I think that shows the importance of why we're, I complained about all of the characters that we get, but you do realize everybody does play a part. And I'm appreciative more and more of everybody we're getting, because everybody matters, despite how the Soul Society and the Soul Reapers have these these layers of who's the best and who's not. And obviously you're going to have some kind of structure, but to completely dismiss the people who are really vital in keeping things going, even him knowing the underground way to get to Rukia, he's so vital, and I love him. He definitely helps us after the Renji fight. That's when I really see that I already adored him, but when I see how strong he is, which, speaking of, Renji versus Ichigo. I love Renji, first of all. The past with him and Rukia, why did these things happen to these characters? Why were they treated so poorly? It did leave me a little confused, because maybe I have to look at the panels again, but it seemed like he looked younger at the time of when he met Rukia. They were kids, right? And they were dealing with all these murders, which is crazy. And then they get older. Do you grow in the Soul Society? How does this world work? How does it continue to function in that way? That leads me to believe that there is even more tragedy that has occurred for Renji and Rukia that we may get later on. Hopefully not, but I don't know, because he seemed like he was a kid at the time that he entered the Soul Society. Either way, seeing their friendship grow, how she started off helping him and his friends, and he was a little bit angry about like her growth and how strong she was, but then they became the best of friends. And when we see why they ended up at the Soul Society, you think it's, because they want to get out of this and get away from all these crazy people. But we look, and the friends they grew up with were behind them in graves that it looks like they did themselves. So this poor Renji has dealt with so much. They go to the Soul Society. They're both improving. And then Rukia gets put with her brother and his family. And Renji tries to stay positive about it. And it looks like Rukia wanted him to say, like, no, stay or don't do it. She's so reserved and quiet and doesn't really express her feelings. You would think that he got jealous of it over that and they split up, but he realized as he was trying to train and get as strong as her brother that he never was. And then he realized that he couldn't save her whenever it was time to save her. And that's kind of why he is more of the way he is with her death, because he just doesn't believe he can do it. And so when him and Ichigo are fighting and Ichigo is just growing and doing great, and the scenes and the panels, it's so strong. And editing Amber here, I had to interrupt because I almost forgot to mention one of my favorite moments of the Renji and Ichigo fight. And that is the flashback to the idea of resolve and how that was what Ichigo was missing. And it's so strange because Ichigo has nothing but determination and fight in him, but we see that Kisuke pulled out of him that he lacks that determination to actually go through with hurting somebody. And it's usually because of not the fear that he can kill, but the fear of actually doing the action, or the fear of somebody else being hurt by his actions. And when he has that realization as he's fighting Renji, oh, this is it. This is what Kisuke was teaching me. I have to unlock this. And you wouldn't think that something like essentially holding yourself back because you know you can would be so impactful, but it is. And he just developed so many powerful moments in this part. And I love when he says, sorry to keep you waiting, Renji. I've resolved to kill you. So he unleashed something pretty cool, but also staying true to himself throughout all of this. And then as Ichigo is winning, Renji still does his thing. And when he realizes he loses, he says to save Rukia. And Ichigo says he will. And with Renji and Ichigo, it was so much more than just this battle of power. It was, we're fighting for the same thing, but for different reasons. And I think Renji was more angry that Ichigo was still trying, whereas he saw there was no purpose. If you can't beat me, you can't beat the rest of them. Like, let it go. I don't want to deal with this pain anymore. I've dealt with the pain of my friend forever. And by the way, she's my friend. Why are you so passionate when I'm the one who should have been protecting her? And there's just a lot layered there. There's so much there. And so to see them both end on a really great note was wonderful. And I'm rooting for both of them. And the fight was great. And Renji's going to get stronger. I believe it. And I can't wait to see his growth and hopefully see him take on somebody in this arc or in the future. Then we have the fight of this part of the arc, and that is Ichigo versus Kenpachi. Again, I know what I'm supposed to be amazed by, and that is Ichigo fighting till he can't fight anymore, and, you know, getting to bond with his blade and getting that realization of what his true focus has been and what it needs to be, and building that relationship and fighting himself, which is the himself that I think is going to try to take his powers later. There's a whole thing there, but I have to talk about Kenpachi, because Kenpachi was a character that I ended up being completely fascinated by. He starts off, we see he's always fighting to fight and getting strong and wanting that power and that ability and to do it on his own and not even name his blade. He just wants to be the strongest. We also see him with that little girl, Yachiru, and they're so cute together and it's funny, but I thought it was just going to be, she was like a little girl who joined the group and he just kind of took a liking to her. But to know he found her in the midst of a bunch of dead bodies, she had no one and not a name. He didn't have a name. When I look back on his fight, I see that he pushes himself so much because I think he knows that he only has himself. So he does it to fight for him. He does it to believe in himself. And whatever's happened to him, I really hope we get that background for him. I hope he realizes along the way that this little girl, amongst, I'm sure, other people, including his blade, would be there for him. And I think it's beautiful that Ichigo kind of opened that door for him. It was heartbreaking when he tried to call out to his blade and the blade didn't say anything. And he's like, I thought so, because he was thinking maybe I can. Maybe I should try. Because for a second, it's like he realized how much he was fighting something that was already there for him. I really liked his character, and I hope we get to see more about him. But I love the little girl as well, and I'm hoping he's not dead. When she looked, because think about her and how he's all she's really known, and it looks like he died, and when she's saying his name, that was... it was beautiful and sad, and I hope he gets better for himself. And then there is Ichigo. Ichigo just, I mean, the way his fight ended up being less about him winning or losing and about him focusing on what's important was something I haven't seen in a lot of fights, and for him to have that moment with his blade by facing himself and realizing the problems with him by talking to him, and the blade still being there for him, Zenjutsu fighting for him and saying, trust me, and Ichigo saying, I do, and the way that transformed him even more, and realizing that they are a team. And in general, this whole story about teamwork and building a team, and also seeing that Zenjutsu deals with Ichigo's emotions and how that affects him, and how when he's sad, it makes him have to feel the rain and the sadness, and for him to say, let's do this together. Let me bring you more happy moments. I love this story. That's all I can say. And then we get a very unique reveal that I'm still trying to process how I feel about it. And that is Yoruichi not being a cat. We see that Yoruichi has saved Ichigo, and that's great, and Ichigo is healing. But then Yoruichi turns into a woman. Now, I thought it was cool in the sense of I wasn't expecting that. Wow. I don't know, though, if I like that she's no longer a cat. I really like that aspect of it. I did. I like her look. I like that, she's sarcastic and funny, and it was unexpected. But I like that she was this very mysterious cat. I don't know. But I think because of that, there's a lot more things to be answered and layers to be revealed. So it'll be cool. But I just miss like the mystery behind the cat. That being said, she is so helpful and helps us fly and get to one of the bigger parts of the story. And there's a lot to unearth about this character. So I'm looking forward to that. Then we go to the twist of the twist. But we see Ganju's face when he sees Rukia. At first, he's joking and saying like, this girl must look amazing if everybody wants to save her. And then we learn that she is the one who killed his brother. Did you guys see that coming? Because I did not. I was so scared about his reaction to it. I was so worried about that. And it's strange because she, I believe, says his brother's name before then, like something like, what would you do? I have to go back and read it. So if she did kill him, it doesn't seem like it was intentional. There's going to be probably so many things connected to that he did it. And she's like, do what you have to do. And then you have Hanataro like, just stay focused on the mission. And then her brother just pops up. I was not, of all the characters, I didn't think it was going to be him. But he sensed the energy and makes his little insult about how it wasn't strong energy. And Hanataro is like, I'll go face him because I don't want you to have to defend somebody who killed your brother. But I just want to do what we can for Ichigo. Oh my gosh. And he goes, but then Ganju puts that aside. He sees Hanataro, how brave he is, and he goes, and no, he doesn't beat the brother, but he does. He's a great distraction, and we just see his growth. I think it's going to be crazy when he finally gets to talk to Rukia, but he goes, and all hope feels lost. And then Ichigo shows up, and the most beautiful thing, it's a lot of beautiful things in these last few panels. When Ichigo pops up using Yoruichi's little contraption to make him fly, and he lands and he gets to be by Rukia for the first time since this happened, but he walks past her to thank Hanataro. And he is my favorite character now. I'm almost positive. I won't say it completely, but when he did that to thank that little boy first and Ganju, I'm just like, I could not. And then he goes to Rukia and she's like, why did you come? But he says, we'll handle all of that later because I have to take on him. It was amazing. That moment to end off this part, if I would have kept going, I would have just binged the whole thing. It was beautiful, emotional, strong. I loved it. I loved it. The beautiful part about this arc is that was just the first half. There are so many things that can happen. I'm really invested in the Aizen storyline. Obviously, Ichigo fighting Rukia's brother and the other captain and being great. But I really want to understand these captains and the mystery behind it and the murder and Ichimaru and what he's up to and how many of these characters are gonna follow us throughout the story in its entirety. I feel like there's a bigger entity that we haven't met yet. And I feel like if that is a thing, the reveal is going to be crazy. And obviously the rest of our group, I want them to be okay and have them join. So I am excited and I need to know what were your favorite moments in this part of the arc, because I have so many and I would love to get your thoughts on everything that happened. This video has come to an end, but of course I'll see you all in my next video. Until we meet again, go read the second part of the Soul Society arc so we can talk about it in the next video. Bye guys.